Hello students. So in the previous class we were talking about that of the carbon dioxide, water vapor, smoke and that of the dust particles. Okay, so when we talk about the water vapor student, we discussed that water vapor is how the water vapor is a part of the air. So by the process of evaporation, what happened, the water surface it get heated due to the sunlight and finally or due to heat, when you provide heat, then finally it will get converted into that of the water vapor and finally it evaporates, mixes with that of the atmosphere. Okay, transpiration also plays an important role because excess amount of water it will get evaporated in the form of a water vapor. Then we discussed about that how the evaporation, how the water vapor is important. Water vapor plays a very important role in the water cycle as it helps in making the formation of that of the cloud when it gets condensed. Later on we discuss about that of the dust particles students. So dust particles, there are lot of sources of the dust particles are there, including these dust particles comes out from dusting or from traffic. Okay, these dust particles they used to come from the blowing of the wind. Okay, as well as if you see blowing of wind, then agriculture practices. So what is this students? It produces the dust and these dust particles finally mixes with that of the air students. We also talked that the dust particles we should not inhale it because it will going to give a breathing problem to us. Similarly, smoke is also there. The smoke is what? It is basically consisting of a fine carbon particle and their gases. Okay, so these carbon particles, you can see that the smoke, it basically it comes from the object which consisting of a carbon. Okay, like that of coal or petrol or diesel or kerosene. So these are the different sources of that of the smoke. And you know the student, like that of the dust particles, smoke is also not good for us. You see in the traffic, these smoke which comes out from the vehicle will going to affect the health of the traffic police, and that is why we used to wear mask. Now today we will understand the next topic, and that is the availability of the oxygen. How much oxygen is important for all the living organisms, including that of the living plants and that of the animals. Okay, and how much, where they get the oxygen, how oxygen is available for them. Okay, so we will discuss about the availability of oxygen in both in plants as well as in animals. So we will write here in living organisms. Okay, so living organism will tell us each and everything. Availability of oxygen in living organism, how oxygen is available for all the living organisms students. So you see here, if we talk about the availability of oxygen to that of the plants and that of the animals who are living in the soil. So the first condition, the first thing that we have to understand is the availability of the oxygen in the plants and the animals living inside the soil. Okay, so availability of oxygen for the living organisms inside the soil. So this will include both the things students, including that of the plants and animals. Now you see So, okay, we are living in that of the, we are showing the terrestrial habitat, so we get the oxygen from that of there. So it is very easy for us to take oxygen, and by this we can respire easily. What about the living organism, those who lives inside that of the soil? Okay, how oxygen is available to them and how they show the process of a respiration. Not only the student, one part of the plant is also inside to that of the soil. And what is that? That is the root of the plant. So we can say that the root of the plants are inside to the soil. Okay, so it is present inside to that of the soil, students. So how the root of the plant, they also get oxygen to respire. So we should understand that when you see the soil, soil is what? The soil particles are loosely arranged with each other. Loosely arranged, it means that they are having a space or a gap between the two soil particles. So these gaps, it consisting of, or it traps, it consisting of that of the oxygen and made oxygen available to all the living organism and the plant itself. So first of all, we have to understand that where the oxygen is present inside the soil. So inside the soil, there are gaps, student, in which the oxygen is trapped or oxygen is present in it. So we can write it. In between the soil particles, space are present in which oxygen is present. So we can say that in between that of the soil particle, air is present, it means oxygen is present. How can you prove it, student, that in between that of the soil particle, a space is there or air is there? For that, you do one activity, and that activity is you will take a beaker. What kind of activity you can do? First of all, you will take a beaker and you will add a dry soil in that beaker. So you write it, take dry soil in the beaker. And then what you can do, student? After taking it, you just pour water in that of the beaker. Okay, so take a dry soil and then you will pour a water in it. So in the second step, pour water in the beaker consisting of dry soil. What will you observe, students, that as you pour it, soil, and stir it with the glass rod. So as you take the dry soil and you add water in it and stir it with the help of the glass rod, you will see the bubbles start coming out from the soil. So how the bubbles are coming out from the soil? First of all, you know that student, when we were doing one activity in which we were saying that air, it occupies a space, there you have seen that as air comes out from that of the water, it comes in the form of a bubbles. So here also you observe that when you add water to the beaker consisting of a dry soil in it, bubbles starts coming out of it. So the bubbles which starts coming out of it, it explains that air is coming out of it. Now from where this air comes out, students? So by this you can say that these airs are present inside that of the soil it means it is present in between the soil, and when you add the water in it, then what will happen? The water occupies the spaces present between that of the soil particle. Where air was present, it comes out. So you see, student, take dry soil and after that we will pour water in the beaker, and finally what you will observe? You will observe air in the form of bubbles comes out. Okay, so air in the form of bubbles, it comes out from that of the dry soil. It proves that soil consisting of air in it. So water occupies the space between the soil particle, thus air starts coming out of it. So you see here, students, as you pour the water in that of the beaker consisting of a dry soil, bubbles coming out. Why does bubble come out? Because when you pour the water, water occupies the spaces which is present in between that of the soil particles. This proves, students, that the bubbles proves that this soil must consisting of a space in which the air is present. When you pour the water, this space which was filled by that of the air is now occupied by that of the water, and finally what will happen? This air will come outside in the form of the bubbles. Okay, so this air comes out so that water can go and fill the space. So by this activity, we come to the conclusion, student, that is soil particles are having a space between them. Okay, so since it is having the space between them, the air, the oxygen is present in it, which is further used up by that of the living organisms, including the plant and animal. When you pour the water, what will happen? These space in which air was present, air will comes outside and the water will take the place. It will occupy that particular space in which air was filled. Okay, so by this activity we came to the conclusion that air is having space students. So soil is having the space. Okay, so if soil is having the space students in it, what does that mean? Soil is having a space in which air is present. Okay, air is present in it means oxygen is present. So the living organism which is present inside that of the soil student, they used to take up the oxygen which is present in between that of the soil particle so that they can respire. Now you see here, student, many living organisms are there which used to live inside the soil. Now they need oxygen so that they can survive. All the living organisms, they need energy to survive. From where they get this energy? They get this energy from that of the oxygen. Okay, so oxygen help in the breakdown of the food, due to which they get energy. So they use up this oxygen and they help in carrying the process of respiration, students. So we can write it, the living organism or the animals lives inside the soil, used up oxygen which is present in between the spaces. It is present in between the space of soil. present, the animals which is living inside the soil, they use the oxygen which is present in the space of the soil. So they take up the oxygen from the spaces between that of the soil particles and they consume that oxygen to carry the process of photosynthesis, students. Okay, so by this the animals they used to take the oxygen. Okay, all the animals they take the oxygen from the soil itself. Soil is having the space where air is present, where oxygen is present, they take it. Now what happened during heavy rainfall? So you see, during heavy rainfall, the spaces of the soil which is present in that of the soil, that spaces is now filled up with that of the rainwater, students, or rainfall. Okay, because when the rainfall occur, when the rainwater occur, the space which was filled with that of the oxygen will be filled by the rainwater. Okay, so we can say that during heavy rainfall, the pores, you can write the pores or the holes. So pores which was filled with air or oxygen is now occupied by the rainwater. Okay, so this oxygen is this pores which was filled with that of the oxygen is now occupied by that of the rainwater, students. So now you see here, students, when the heavy rainfall occurred, the pores, the hole in which the oxygen was present is now filled with the rainwater. Now how the living organism they will respire? Okay, so for that, what they used to do, they used to come outside from their hole, from that of the soil, so that they can take an atmospheric oxygen to respire. So you can write it that as a consequence, what happened? As a result, because the air, the oxygen which was present in the pore is now filled with the water. So as a result, the living organisms or the animals, living organisms in soil comes out of the soil to take the atmospheric oxygen for respiration. So for carrying the process of respiration, they used to take up the atmospheric oxygen, and for that student they came outside. So we can take an example of the earthworm, then we will understand it better. Now earthworm is what? It is a living organism, it is an animal which lives inside that of the soil. So how does it respire, students? How does it get energy? It gets energy from the oxygen which is present in between the pore of the soil particle or hole of the soil particle. So it takes up all the air which is present in that of the soil particles, in between that of the soil particles, and finally it shows the process of respiration. During heavy rainfall, these pores, this hole is now filled up with that of the water. And as it is filled up with that of the water, students, so what happened? It is filled with the water. So the earthworm, it does not have oxygen to respire. So it have to respire, students. So for the process of respiration, for carrying the process of respiration, it used to come outside the soil, outside to that of the earth surface, and there it can respire well. Okay, so by this we can say the living the animals, they used to survive inside that of the soil, and oxygen is available for them. Now if we talk about that of the plants, students, so how plants We said that one part of the plant, that is root, it is present inside that of the soil. Okay, so basically what happened, the roots which is present inside the soil, they also respire by taking the oxygen which is present in between that of the soil. Okay, in between the pore of that of the soil. Okay, so the root which is present in the soil also respires by taking the air or oxygen present in the soil. So it takes up the oxygen, the air for the process of respiration which is present inside the soil. That is why student you have heard that suppose we add a lot of water in a plant, the plant will die. What is the reason? Even though you are giving the water and you know that the water is very essential part for carrying the process of photosynthesis and for the growth of the plant. Okay, so how can you say that when you give a lot of water the plant will die? It is because when you give a lot of a pore, the soil particles, the pores between that of the soil is filled with the water. Okay, so now there is no oxygen is available, there is no air is available inside the soil. So how the root will respire? So root will not respire and due to which the root die, hence plant will also die. And that is why we should add water in a limited amount, in a proper amount. We should never add water in a more amount so that the plant will die. So by the students we can say that how oxygen is available for the living organism, those who live inside to that of the soil students. Okay, so consisting of a lot of space in the soil, and that will help in trapping the air, the oxygen in it, which is finally used by the living organism, including that of the animals like that of the earthworm, as well as the root, a part of the plant, that is root, which is present inside the soil. Okay, so by this method, by this way, the oxygen is available inside that of the soil. Now we will discuss student availability of oxygen of the plants and the animals living inside that of water. Right now we discussed about the animals and plants living inside that of the soil. Right now we will discuss that how oxygen is available for the organisms which is living inside that of the water, which is present in the water. So we can say that availability of oxygen in water. So we discussed this many times students that how oxygen is available in that of the water. So you see here, especially in case of the aquatic plants. In case of an aquatic plant student, what happened? The aquatic plant, they show the process of photosynthesis. So as they show the process of photosynthesis, what they do? They used to take carbon dioxide which is released by that of the aquatic animal, and finally with that help of a carbon dioxide, they show the process of photosynthesis and helps in releasing the oxygen. Okay, so it helps in releasing the oxygen with the help of photosynthesis. So by the process of photosynthesis, they used to take the carbon dioxide to release oxygen. Okay, so now oxygen is released by that of the aquatic plant, and this oxygen is finally used up by that of the aquatic animals as well as by the aquatic plants also for the process of respiration. So we can write it, this oxygen is further used by that of the aquatic animals as well as plants to the process of respiration. Okay, so this oxygen, it is further used by that of the plant to carry the process of respiration. So basically what happens student, aquatic plants, they take up the carbon dioxide which is released by that of the aquatic animals, and they show the process of photosynthesis. Now oxygen is released by these aquatic plants which is later used by that of the aquatic animals. Now aquatic animals does not have a lungs student, they are having a special type of a respiration organ which we call as a gills. Okay, so what happened when the plants they release the oxygen will get dissolved in the water itself. Okay, so let me tell you one more thing students, the carbon dioxide and that of the oxygen which is present in the water, it is always present in the dissolved form. Okay, so it is present soluble or it is in the dissolved form in that of the water. So the animals they used to take up the water that consisting of the oxygen. Now gills which is present in that of the aquatic animal, it take out the oxygen from that of the water and finally it will releases the water. Okay, so oxygen is used up by that of the gills. It extract the oxygen from the water and finally use it to carry the process of respiration. So it is a kind of a specialized organ which help in taking the oxygen. So we will write one more point here, that oxygen which is present in the water is in the dissolved form. Okay, so it is in the dissolved form students from which they extract oxygen. Now this oxygen is also used up by that of the aquatic plant. So aquatic plant they take up this oxygen and they also carry the process of respiration. You know that plants they used to carry the process of photosynthesis as well as the respiration. Same thing happened here. The animals as well as that of the plants they use up the oxygen to carry the process of respiration. So by this we can say that how oxygen is available to that of the plant and animal living in the water. So oxygen is, as we had discussed in the availability of the oxygen in the soil. So oxygen is also available in the water including that of the soil. Now an activity is given here in that of your book students, in which there is an activity in which it tells that the water also consisting of air in it, or water has also air in it. Okay, so we will discuss about that. Before that, we should know that the oxygen which is present in the water, it is in the dissolved form, and this oxygen is used by that of the aquatic plants and the aquatic animals, and finally they show the process of respiration, and they show the process of respiration, and finally they get the energy. Although the process of respiration, or we can say the process of taking up of the oxygen as compared to that of the terrestrial plants and animals is totally different in case of the aquatic plants, where aquatic plants and animals, where there is a lung, there is a gas, and they used to take the oxygen, dissolve with the water. Same thing with that of the water also, student. They take up the carbon dioxide, and for carrying the process of respiration, they used to take oxygen in the oxygen which is dissolved in the water. Okay, so then we will discuss about the activity, that is water